Hey guys, today's story is about a bunch of perverts, and the OP unknowingly agreeing to joining their game. And I'll also give you a warning, as the story does get a bit graphic. My first experience with dipping my toes into tabletop RPGs was brought about by an online friend of mine who knew that I had been wanting to give it a go for a while. This took place months ago when he came to me and told me that he was running a campaign as the DM. And he told me that it would be heavily story-based, but also have influence from another game that we both play. And as it was my first ever tabletop game, I thought it was perfect for my first time. The other players were all men varying in age. However, they all had one thing in common. They all played as women who were either bisexual or lesbian. I don't mind people playing as the opposite gender and other sexualities, but it did give me cause to pause. In my naivete, I hoped it was merely a coincidence and not a fetish, but I think you know which it was. We had Jessica, who was playing a sorcerer, Hannah, who was, I believe, playing a dark knight, Lucy, playing a druid, Anne playing a warlord, Aaron playing a cleric, and myself playing a 16-year-old human bard, with that being an unfortunate, important detail. The campaign right from the start was a disaster, so I won't bore you with all those details, and I'll simply cover what bothered me the most out of this campaign, which predominantly took place in the one dungeon. This particular disaster started when the party made their way to a dungeon, and outside of it, 3 NPCs were arguing. 3 cousins who I will name John, Delilah, and Bill. And after a slight scuffle, things were smoothed over, and we were told that the leader of the NPCs was John, who was a gay or bisexual man, who had just lost his lover within the dungeon, and so he enlisted our help in retrieving the body. Fair enough. So we all went and dealt with some enemies. I made a perception check and rolled a high number. High enough to find a secret chamber with 3 chests in it. And after investigating for traps, we found that 2 out of the 3 were safe. And as I was the one to find it, I got to choose first. And in the first chest that I chose, it contained some magic items that were not really important. The one on the left, however, I left for Jessica to open, and when she did, it was said to contain a magical stone, and a number of pink potions, and a whip. Jessica stated that her character would wonder what it tasted like, and so the DM decided to have her roll a wisdom save to not drink it. Failing this, her character was forced to drink the potion, and she immediately became a succubus. What? This changed her entire character. Her charisma went from a 17 to 25, and she was able to drain others' levels through sex, consensual or otherwise. She could also use a mind control ability, and her alignment changed from good to evil. The most disturbing thing, however, was when the DM told us that she could no longer turn down invitations for sex or other such advances. I was very uncomfortable with this, as I didn't sign up for some zero-consent erotic nonsense. But Jessica told me that he was okay with it, and I chose to keep quiet and just go along with it, me being a big noob. The moment she changed, the NPC who let us in was said to be ogling her, the one who just lost his lover, the one we were currently retrieving the body of. You know, that NPC. So we moved further in, and we came to a point where we could hear voices up ahead, which were coming from what seemed like a large group of pirates. Not wanting to take on a large group, I immediately went to start brainstorming and looking for other paths. Jessica, on the other hand, didn't want to do this and went into the chamber ahead, which I think was about 60 pirates and their captain. The DM described the captain by... Oh wait, he didn't. He just said that the captain stood up and took his 2-foot-long snake out from his trousers. I now knew more about this man's penis than I did anything else. And what followed was the worst erotica I had ever seen. I don't even read nor write erotica, but let me tell you, I could have done a better job. As this happened, the leader of the trio of NPCs stepped in, and we all followed, as we didn't want to leave him to fend for himself, and he immediately betrayed all of us. He offered us up as sex slaves in exchange for the return of his lover's body. Me being thoroughly creeped out, I told the DM that I was very uncomfortable with this, and he informed me that he didn't intend to make me or anyone else feel that way, and so we ended the session shortly after this. Once it was over, I told him that if this was going to become a regular occurrence, then I was going to leave the group, which at this point in time, this was about the third session or so. He responded and said that no, it wasn't going to be. So I asked him if he could at least remove my character from the situation, as he was 16, and I wasn't comfortable with him being in such a sexual situation, to which he agreed. But heck, even if he was an adult character, I myself am uncomfortable with role-playing sexual situations. In the next session, we were all in shackles from having been given up to the pirates. My character was taken to a separate location away from the rest of the players, and I'm thankful that the DM seemed to have listened to my complaint. Anyway, so then my character was put into a cowboy stripper outfit and made to perform for the first mate. And while this was happening, the other players were once again doing their erotica in another part of the dungeon. This included Jessica raping John to death in front of his cousin Delilah, while Bill was taking the virginity of Anne. What the fuck am I reading? I had enough at this point and kind of just disengaged and was just going through the motions. I immediately got my character out of that icky situation and used Disguise Self to look like another pirate. Anne, after her sexual encounter, like myself, decided to get out of there, and we both separately stated to plan our escape. On my way around the dungeon, I learned that the first mate had been having an affair with the wife of his captain. I kind of perked up at this news as a plan formed in my brain. The plan was to split the pirate crew into two sides, one on the captain's and one on the first mate's, and while they were fighting each other, pick off whoever remained while hiding away. Along the way to finding the captain, however, Anne had encountered him first, and so they had a scuffle, and Anne was losing. So I entered the scene, still disguised, and just as I started to put my plan into motion, the DM told me that I couldn't do that, or he would kill Anne on the next turn. He told me that the only option was to stab the captain, because apparently the wife was just a share wife, who apparently everyone was sleeping with, even though it wasn't presented as such. The information was presented as some seedy secret amongst the crew. At this point, I was so disappointed because I had been wanting to play as the kind of character who does not really do that sort of thing. The type who would use their words and think things through, and only raising their sword where they needed to. But no. I was told I had to stab the captain, or another player would get killed. So yeah, I stabbed him and just played on my phone while not really paying attention to anything else. Anne was also allowed to have the pirates take her side when we later fought the first mate, and I don't know why she could, but I couldn't. Some stuff happened, we stole their ship, and my character insisted on taking the other slave girl NPCs with us to the next town to get them some help. We were level 5 at this stage, maybe, and we were told that once we got them to town, we would have to pay 300,000 gold for the girls to get proper care. There was no way that we could afford that. But somehow, Aaron bippity-boppity-booed each girl within 12 hours, so that they no longer needed help. I was really confused here, as well as amazed, at the disregard that the DM and the players had for the severity of trauma surrounding being a sex slave. They presented it as, ta-da! You had a 1-hour therapy session, you're cured, off you go. Disgusted, we got tossed in front of another dungeon for the next session. Why did I stay? I don't know. Hannah, Anne, and Lucy were late, so we decided, Aaron, Jessica, and I were going to wait outside. I decided to make a flower crown and just relax. Jessica joined me, and Aaron decided to go collect ingredients for potion brewing. And as she wandered off, they said, "You should give him head." And if you remember earlier, I mentioned that Jessica was unable to turn down sexual advances. I didn't think of this when Aaron made her little joke, and neither did Jessica, until the DM butted in and told Jessica to roll a wisdom save. She succeeded and was able to resist, but it didn't matter to me. I was creeped out and didn't want to do it anymore, and I hated how every session turned into some weird fetish. The campaign ended shortly after that when Hannah, who often never paid any attention, stopped showing up. Lucy dropped off the face of the planet, and I was just so disgusted that I didn't want to do it anymore. A lot more happened than just this. Lucy had sex with her panther, there was an overpowered DMPC, Hannah, who was never paying attention, Aaron was snarky, and there's probably more that I just can't think of. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed the story. The main reason I would say for my not having left sooner would be because at first, I thought maybe it was normal, and I was just being a prude, as it seemed like everyone else was having fun except for me. So I stupidly stayed, but have learned since that if I'm not having fun, then I should just leave. It was unfortunate that I had to learn this lesson this way. Where do I begin with this one? I suppose I'll start with the fact that even with the OP's character having been stated that they were a minor, the DM decided that he wanted his character to do a strip dance, which, if you're going to play something that's really not D&D and really more of just being fatal, that's fine, but you shouldn't be offering D&D to a new player when what they get isn't D&D, but is instead a bunch of horny ne'er-do-wells just stroking each other's proverbial bones. Quite honestly, I hope the OP isn't friends with this guy anymore. He makes me concerned. But yeah, this whole story leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I had this in my backlog for a while on stuff that I hadn't read, and having gotten around halfway through the story, I remembered why I didn't initially want to do it. So yeah, that's the end of this one. Have a good one, and remember, no D&D is better than whatever the fresh hell this was.